Hello and welcome to the latest in our series of EE webinars coming to you from Wembley Stadium. We're really pleased you can join us for another informed chat, this time about the challenges facing the public sector and the agility and productivity gains fast and secure mobile devices and networks present. We'll also take a moment to look in depth at the tools Microsoft has to offer in this area and the role of MobileIron. With the public sector in mind, we'll hear a health service use case, how East Midlands Ambulance Service is extending its control rooms to remote areas, and how one UK police force is at the cutting edge of crime fighting. With me to discuss all this and more are Adrian Williams, Director of Commercial Sales for Microsoft Devices, Graham Jenkins, Head of Public Sector for UK and Ireland at MobileIron, and from EE we have Gail Liddell, Senior Propositions Manager, and Barry Bolton, who is Head of Marketing, Government and Public Sector. Barry, I'm going to start with you. We'll talk very much in specifics around some use cases, some case studies of mobile, but let's talk about the broad issue that is facing the public sector at the moment. And clearly part of that broad issue is cuts in funding. The government is attempting to eliminate the deficit that has a clear impact on the public sector, having to do just the same things with less money. How is it doing the same things with less money?
Okay, John, so some things haven't changed within public sector. Still a lot of conversation around how can we trim costs, and mobile is part and parcel of that conversation. The difference I'm seeing now is that the conversations are now moving broader from just IT and procurement and trying to trim some costs off the voice and off of the accessories to a more, well, hold on a minute, what can mobile actually bring to the table? What can mobile do for us as an organisation? So they are actually driving the conversation as opposed to just us at EE in terms of, well, what can a mobile organisation actually achieve over and above what it's doing at the moment?
Very good, and we'll look at some of the examples of how that might happen in a moment. But Gail, what you talk to public sector on a regular basis? What are they talking to you about? What are the issues that they are raising?
So productivity is clearly the biggest issue and saving costs, but the difference in the conversations that we're now seeing is that they're coming to us and asking us to help them innovate, to achieve better productivity with the same resources, but using technology just that bit smarter. And
they're really asking for innovation, solutions for innovations, rather than just keeping the lights on.
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing requests, to help businesses and organisations innovate, but, from the public sector, we're seeing a lot coming forward.
Graham, same question to you from a MobileIron perspective. What is the public sector, what are the people in the public sector asking of you?
So they're really asking for us to, three main things that we're seeing at the moment is greater cost saving. Obviously, the austerity measures put in place by George Osborne, £20 billion worth in cuts. So they're looking at ways of saving money, as we mentioned, but they do want to drive innovation. Their workers have mobile devices already and it's improved their personal lives. They're now looking at ways they can utilise that into public sector organisations, use applications as well to actually drive more collaboration and more efficiency, so more productivity.
And are those two things incompatible? You talked about the billions of cuts, and then you talked on the other hand about innovation. Can you have the best of both worlds? Can you do both of those things?
Absolutely. So you look at some of the processes that's in place today and how they're very much, could be mobilised to actually save more money in that way. And you can do realistic cost savings on ink, paper printing, travel, just by actually making some of those processes more mobile. But the key thing that comes with it is security and how you adhere to the regulations and compliance that's put in place by public sector.
And we will talk about security in some detail later on. But Adrian, the same question to you from a Microsoft perspective. What are the issues that are being raised by the public sector?
Yeah, I guess there comes a point where as an organisation there's only so much cost you can cut, and you have to look at other ways of being more efficient. Productive is a word that's used a lot. Mobility is much more in line with how we live today, so we don't close the door when we leave the office and work is done. It's no longer like that. So mobility is now more key, and these organisations are looking at how they can use the technology they've got to do more, mobilising that technology, but equally considering the processes that they have behind that, because it's not just a case of taking a simple process that they maybe have in place today and digitalising it or mobilising it. You have to rethink some of those processes, and that's really where you start to see the gains in efficiency.
So Graham, this is quite interesting. In terms of a potential barrier to entry, we have this idea of layering mobility across the top, but unless you change the culture and some of the processes, nothing else is going to change.
Well, again, arguably you could say the culture has already changed. People have these devices, they know how to use them. So actually, why wouldn't you give them that capability to say, actually, you know how to use this in a personal world. Here, we'll give you some applications to make your life more easier so that you can actually get out on the road and do your job more effectively.
Barry, I'd suggest that perhaps one of the barriers to entry, or one issue that the public sector is facing, maybe it doesn't see it as an issue, maybe it doesn't see it as a problem, but that there is a prevalence of feature phones still in the public sector. Is that a problem?
From an EE perspective, we'd like to obviously see more, goes without saying. But what we are seeing is week on week, month on month, that figure reducing. So more and more connections are moving over from feature phones to smartphones. Why is that happening? A number of reasons, because their customers are seeing the benefits that mobility can bring to their organisation. The costs of those devices are coming down. And they're also realising that there's a whole host of opportunities out there for them to make the most of in terms of the apps that are out there now on mobile devices.
I guess one of the misgivings that a public sector organisation may have is around the use of data. Smartphones, smart devices allow you to use data. That data could be misused. It could lead to spiralling costs.
So, well, two things there. One, my colleagues will talk extensively about the security, which we work with them around. But in terms of the costs, it's not a problem. We have all of our tariffs and service offerings all come with capped allowances, so you do know your spend each month. So there are none of the old days where it was a case of not really knowing what to expect when your bill dropped through the letterbox. Those days are gone.
Gail, what about this issue around the feature phone? I think there's some EE stats from the EE base of public sector that suggest that 65% of users aren't using data.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still the idea out there that, could they be caught out by data shock? But we've got, there are a number of ways that we can help organisations manage that nowadays. The other thing is that with volumes and complexity of solutions can also come a kind of barrier. Should I move? Should I just stay doing what I'm doing? But again, we're working really closely with organisations to give them the kind of help and support that they need to make that step, which will then allow them to innovate.
So, Adrian, we're going to look in a moment at a particular use case, but just one more point on this potential barrier to entry, the prevalence of feature phones and this slight concern around cost.
Yeah, I guess the opportunity for these organisations is much more reachable and attainable. Affordability of particularly products like Lumia and Surface that we have in our portfolio mean that barrier to entry is a lot easier. But I think equally the ability to integrate, to connect into their own systems, it's much simpler. And the ability to manage those devices that are connected securely, again, that makes it much simpler than maybe it was a few years ago.
Okay, we promised you some case studies and some use cases. Here's a use case involving the health service and intelligent messaging.
Not only are text messages cheaper and quicker than something like a phone call or an email, but they offer far greater reach too. The results are really impressive. Text messaging systems have been proven to reduce DNAs by up to 65%. Intelligent messaging from EE is drastically reducing the amount of no-shows within the NHS, and this is saving money and time. When you consider that a missed hospital appointment will cost the NHS £137, and if you miss your appointment with your GP, that will cost the NHS £45, the potential savings could be huge. Intelligent messaging for healthcare from EE can save time, it can save money, and can even save lives.
Okay, Barry, so we saw a specific example there. It's suggested that the health service is losing hundreds of millions of pounds a year from did not attend. How might we apply that specific example to elsewhere in the public sector?
So John, what we're trying to do, we're not trying to change the world overnight. All we're doing is looking at opportunities for some of our verticals within public sector where there is clearly an opportunity for them and for us, or for us to help them save money. Now, that is a colossal figure that we're talking about there with the case study that we've just viewed. We're not suggesting for 1 minute that we're going to save hundreds of billions of pounds overnight, but it's a start, and what we are doing is making an impact not just in the health environment but also in the police force as well. We're keeping police officers on the beat for longer because of they're adopting similar technologies, and this is helping in the community in general. You know, we're seeing nurses spending longer with their patients because they can. We're seeing police constables spending longer in the community, again because they can, because of technology. And this extends across some of our other verticals as well, certainly within local councils, town planners, and the list is endless, and we're really just at the start of that journey.
Thank you. Adrian, the word security has been mentioned more than once already, so let's deal with that elephant in the room. It's a big concern of every organisation. Public sector is no different. What is Microsoft doing in that area?
Yeah, so in Microsoft, it's hugely important. Obviously, the ability to secure data, whether it be personal or business-related data. And with Windows 10, for example, there's a huge amount more capability that are delivered across all devices that adopt Windows 10. So, you know, the ability to be able to utilise data from the cloud rather than storing that locally on the device, but equally the ability to manage those devices much more dynamically.
And Graham, from a MobileIron point of view, first of all, maybe for the uninitiated, explain what MobileIron does and then tell me what role it plays.
Absolutely. So MobileIron is a technology that sits on the device, and these devices have fantastic enablement capability in there as well, but also security. But of course, from public sector specifically, there are requirements that security be turned on. Now, if you give these devices to a user, the first thing they do is not put a password on or put encryption in. We have capabilities of enforcing that on them, so actually they meet the policy that's been set. So it's a way of actually ensuring the security is in place. But equally, you know, it's not all about lockdown. You've got to remember these devices are, you know, very capable. And so we need to put enablement in there as well so that they can utilise the fantastic capability that Microsoft actually brings with O365 and enable them to use that, but just in a secure manner. Okay,
that word again, enable. So you're suggesting that security enablement is not necessarily a contradiction in terms. It sounds to me that you have security on one side, you have enablement on the other side. You can't have both.
Yes, you can, and this is the shift that we're seeing now in IT is having to balance. You know, the Internet of Things and these fantastic devices have actually introduced an "I want it now" approach from a lot of the workforce, and they want that native experience, but they also want their personal privacy, as Adrian mentions, and that's where MobileIron comes in as the balance really of giving the user the native experience that they want to do the workload, but still giving IT the reassurance they're in control of their data.
Okay, time for a second case study, this time from the East Midlands Ambulance Service. Let's take a look now.
Everywhere we go, we have to be in control of our resources, we have to know where they are. We need to be connected at all times.
We need reliable, consistently fast data connections. This connected vehicle will be deployed to major incidents where we can use this as an extension of our control room. Obviously, one of the biggest problems we've always had was a limitation on coverage, particularly in the more remote locations. Since the EE equipment's been installed on this vehicle, we're getting what I would call real broadband capability now. 4G technology is really helping us there. And as we move forward with how we use technology in the healthcare environment, the reliance on broadband and Wi-Fi will only grow exponentially.
Okay, Gail, another very specific example. What can we learn from that?
I think it's the power of 4G from EE that's really driving these sorts of user cases from our customers. You know, they've developed smartphones and they've had them for about 3 years now, but as 4G rolls out across the country, and we're now up to 93% of population, there are so many more possibilities available to them. You know, you can get good Wi-Fi in many, many more places like East Midlands are talking about here. And with that, then the customer starts to think, what next? What else can I do? What else can I achieve with 4G?
Earlier you talked about rollout. How are you helping your customers with that?
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a lot of ways we can help, and it really very much depends on the organisation. You know, what skills they've got within their own organisation, how many devices they're rolling out, how far they're rolling out. But we've got things like welcome days. We work with Microsoft on specific handset training days for end users, so they can get up to speed quite quickly with the device and the technology they're going to be using. We can customise devices before they even go out, so very frequently we'll be asked to download the MobileIron app ready on the device for when that user picks it up. So, you know, there's all sorts of things that we've got. We've got reporting, we've got managed services. In the case of the East Midlands, the case study we've just seen here, we provide a fully managed service wrap around that particular proposition.
Very good. Let's end with a couple of things. One, a bit of future gazing, and then Adrian, finally, a bit of advice. But let's start, Adrian, with the future gazing. Where does this mobility go next?
Do you know, I think the opportunity is limitless, and you look at some of the innovation that Microsoft is bringing to market, you know, just in a few weeks' time with solutions such as Continuum. Now, from a mobile device, you can run a full desktop-like experience. For those that are mobile, that offers a huge amount of opportunity, and we're starting to see segments like policing looking to really take advantage of that.
Graham, future gazing, where does it go next?
Totally agree with Adrian. It is limitless, and with the power of applications, you can literally mobilise any process that was in place. You know, some fantastic ways of saving money. One that we've worked with is actually, you know, the mobilisation of social services and actually doing away with paper, more efficiency there, and actually, you know, saving lives in that manner as well. So a real drive around the application piece and that growing more. Very good. Same question to you, Gail. Where does it go next?
I think we're moving more towards one-stop shop. So customers are coming to the network provider who's the specialist in 4G technology to deliver the entire package for them, you know, to pull together the partners into a nice kind of bundle, and that we can then deliver to a customer so that they have the minimum amount of hassle.
And Barry, a bit of future gazing from you.
So from a public sector perspective, I'll take it back to the duty of care within public sector and organisations, whether that be police, healthcare, care in the community. We've had propositions in the market such as lone worker for a number of years. I think with the advance in technology and the miniaturisation of equipment, you take a lone worker solution and to have it as a small device on their being, which will help them and you know, report back to control centres. But it's all about security and the care of those individuals working for those organisations, and that is evolving and improving all of the time with the technology available.
Very good. And one last question to each of you. Barry, starting with you, a bit of advice for those watching out there, specifically thinking about the public sector and the use of mobility. One piece of advice.
So simply just be mindful of the overall ROI. Don't start looking at your mobile phone bills as a cost. Look at it as an opportunity for cost savings elsewhere, and what does it actually enable you to do for your business, your organisation.
Gail, one piece of advice.
I think be open to change and come and talk to us, and you know, talk to the experts in the field. And I think every entity, every organisation is different, and I think if we're prepared to work in that flexible manner, then you know, come talk to us about it.
Graham, advice.
I would say embrace the opportunity that mobile brings, and that's, you know, public sector we see very differently from the private. They share, they all talk, and part of the PSN stipulation is that they do collaborate, and mobile is the perfect way to deliver that.
Adrian, advice.
Yeah, I think echoing much of what the guys have said, but it's more about, think about how it would be to best do what it is that you're doing out in the field or wherever you might be, and then think of how you can improve that. Don't think of it from a cost point of view. Think about how would this process, or how would our customers best be served, and how do I use this technology to achieve that.
Adrian, thank you very much, and to you, Graham, Gail and Barry, thank you all very much, and thank you for watching. Now, we'd really love to keep this conversation going beyond today. To find out more about working with EE, with Microsoft and with MobileIron, do get in touch. You can see some details on the screen now. And until next time, thanks for watching.